All right. I want to thank everyone once again for another Upscale Media Group podcast, doing it via Zoom today, reaching out from Ohio, Delaware, Philly. Got a couple other cities we're going to hit as well, but we're going to reach out and just kind of get some insight on some things here. Take a quick second to introduce yourself as we go around the spot here. Alicia, go ahead on.
Hi, family. It's Alicia. I'm from I'm down here in Delaware. That's about it.
All right, Maurice, right. Okay, didn't do it. Okay.
Oh, you wanted me to say something. I thought you was introducing me. Yeah.
That's funny.
He's right. Nobody important. Go ahead.
All right, Mac Man.
E. Mac, Philadelphia, PA. Ready to get this on.
All right.
Pop.
Reese.
And Paris Williams out of Akron.
All right.
Nice to meet your family, dog.
All right, we just doing it, just kind of doing this across the country, if you will, here. We want to talk a little bit about the podcast and the impact of COVID-19 from a regional standpoint. We wanted to do something from the standpoint of reaching out to, which is going to be our next one, Georgia as well as Michigan and maybe even South Carolina folks as well, just kind of see where they're standing. But let's talk about the reintegrating from our standpoint back into society and how it's affecting us. What's your thoughts, especially further east, your Philly, your Boston, up in that area where it's hitting kind of hard? What's going on up there in Delaware and Philly?
Well, Alicia, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll take it from here. You know, Delaware is as you know, part of the megapolis of the East Coast. We're connected to so many cities. Now, if you're asking me if it's a good idea to reintegrate, it's a horrible idea to do that. Sussex County, which is one of 3 counties down here in Delaware, has a high number of cases. I just watched Governor Carney's update on April 30th, I believe it was. And we are nowhere near ready to integrate in the state. As you know, in order to really slowly even get into the first phase 1 of opening a state, you have to have at least 2 weeks of no COVID-19 cases. We're not there yet.
Okay. Or at least lowering.
I'm sorry?
Or at least stabilizing or lowering the numbers.
Right, we're not there yet. The health official came on to basically reiterate that sentiment that the state is not there yet. When the lockdown started, there was actually another podcast I watched. They're from one of the boroughs up in New York, and the son said he came down here to Delaware. But I'm thinking, why are you leaving your state to come down here on a vacation? You know what I mean? You don't have no business being down here. Stay where you belong. Stay at home. That doesn't mean you have to be locked in your home, but stay at home. You know, and try to basically duck and dodge COVID-19 right now. It's no joke. You know what I mean? Anyway, so that's my point of view, and that's the view from the governor and the officials of the state, that we're not even really ready to hit phase 1 pretty much.
So I'm going to piggy bank a little bit there on Alicia back. One thing about Black folks, sometimes we don't believe it really stinks until it's in your face. Darren, what you told me a couple days ago, if you see somebody out there, especially one of us, that don't have a mask on, you're wrong. You're wrong. Especially in the store, you're wrong. But I gotta say, going to different supermarkets, I don't go to a lot of them, but when I am in a supermarket now, I do see a lot of Black people wearing masks now, which I think look, bottom line is, I don't think we should really be out there having parties in the parks, barbecuing and all this kind of crazy stuff right now, because you could be sick not knowing you sick, and then you go home to the elderly and then you pass it off to them. They're the ones who can't recuperate off of it. So I'm thinking we should be safe all the way around, and we need to kind of in a sense, like if you see somebody without a mask and they I don't know really what to say. I think we just need to use common sense. How about that?
All right. So let me jump in on this here. From a generational standpoint, I have younger daughters, and I want to kind of, Alicia, you're a generation beneath us, if you will, but I want to kind of jump in and get the thoughts from everyone with regards to how we are approaching the seriousness of this. I obviously talk to people all the time, and I'm hearing this is a conspiracy theory. There's no real truth to it, as y'all mentioned before, until it affects us. I don't realize that it's something that's really happening. So what's your thoughts on that?
You asking me? Well, I'm a little different. I got a little different type of lifestyle. I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I have a little extra time on my hands to really look to see what's going around the world, right? I saw the situation happening in China in January.
Okay.
I seen it in January. I was reading, I was staying connected to some of the Chinese citizens, listening to certain statements from, for instance, the mayor of Wuhan said 5 million had left because it was around the Chinese New Year. I said, that's a big problem. If 5 million people ain't even in the city of Wuhan and y'all locked down. I'm not great at numbers, but when we come back to the common sense aspect of that, that means that tells me that it's going to spread all around Asia, right? And there's about 1 billion Chinese people.
Right.
Okay? There's a lot of Chinese.
That's a few.
They're going to spread it all the way around. People who are younger, my age, might not even care about none of that. Because you know why? Because it's all the way over there on the other side of the world. How could that affect me, right? You know? Nobody's never lived through a time of a pandemic. So they don't really see that really happening to them. So I knew, to answer your question, that this was not a conspiracy theory. Because there was a lot of leaked information that was going on in China. And I take some things with a grain of salt. I don't believe everything that I read because I'm not there to see it for myself. You know, that would be the same thing as something happens in my neighbor's home. I don't really know because I'm not in the home, right? But there was a couple things that was going on, such as a nurse came out and said there were 90,000 cases when they were saying it was only 3,000 or 4,000. There was Tencent, which is a tech giant company in China that had accidentally put up a high number of cases and deaths, and then quickly took that number down off their website. Okay, there's that. Then there were missing journalists. Then finally, you had the doctor who died. That really was a shot heard around the world. The doctor that died, they had already told them that there were a abnormally high number of pneumonia cases that citizens were dying from. He died, and that really, made the world take a look at that. So when it reaches America finally, I hear people saying it's a hoax. You know, we got melanin, so we ain't gonna be affected. I'm like, you gotta stop with that kind of information. Because as you can see, we're affected by so many diseases. It's ridiculous as Black people. We're affected by so many different diseases. You can't go spreading that kind of information on your platform. So that's wrong to even say that. So anyway, that's to answer your question.
All right, Lynn, how you doing, Lynn?
Yeah, I can hear you guys now.
Good.
Go ahead and introduce yourself. We live.
Yep.
Another Upscale Media Group podcast, just talking about the effect on our society. Is it a genuine threat? Just go ahead and weigh in, introduce yourself, where you're from, and all that good stuff.
Okay. Well, I'm Lynn Mack. I'm from Philadelphia. And do you want me to talk about what I feel about the pandemic, or?
Yeah. Well, we're going to just kind of talk about society from the standpoint of it being reintroduced, and is it too soon? And then we're going to get into some other things, so you can kind of weigh in on that.
Okay, well, I mean, as far as I heard the end of what Alicia was saying, and it is kind of sad that there's a lot of misinformation going on about, who can get it and who can't get it. And I really don't even like the fact that you know, the news came out and said that it's going to really affect mostly people over 60. It's not going to affect children, and people who already have some type of lung disease or something like that. Because I think that doesn't even make sense to me. And a lot of people who apparently have the virus, who have died from the virus, weren't sick. You know, it's a lot of older people, but a lot of people weren't, like, had previous health conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I don't know why they, you know, spread that type of that's a lot of misinformation too. So, I mean, no matter what you think, whether you think it's a hoax or whatever, there is something real out there. There's a real threat out there, and we got to protect ourselves. You got to wear a mask because you don't know what people have. You know, you just don't know. But I wanted to say this too, though. So, because I heard some people also talking about this. Well, they're talking about it all on the radio too, right? So, what is the purpose, and maybe somebody can answer, what is the purpose of getting tested if they don't have a cure? Where's our name going? Why is our name, what are they doing with this information? Is your name going on a certain kind of list, you know, for the future? Like, does this mean you won't be able to travel outside of the United States? Does this, you know, what are they doing with this information? I mean, really, because if you get tested and you have it and they tell you go back home and quarantine yourself, there's nothing we can do. So my question is, so what is the purpose of being tested other than, you know, just saying, okay, now 1 million people in the United States have it. Okay. And the purpose of that is just to say, to what?
A lot of ways to go with that one. A lot of ways.
Just to answer part. If I can interject, just to answer part of that question. As you know, they're trying to get plasma from those that they deem are now immune to COVID-19. So they are trying to do that. But yeah, that's my concern too. What kind of what will you be doing with my information? Will you be limiting my freedom of movement? You know, because I feel like I may be, you know, a super spreader of COVID-19. What will you be doing with information? That's something that I definitely think about. You know, I hate to get sick and then I travel somewhere and then told I'm not allowed to board a flight. You know.
Right, and then the other thing is, this is information. From what I'm understanding, that they really don't know. If you get coronavirus, are you immune to it? Or is it still antibodies in there? This is what they're trying to figure out. Is it still in your system? Or, you know, will it reoccur? Is this something that will continue to reoccur? Or now you'll never get it again? Or, you know, so these are questions that really need to be answered. And, you know, and we're not getting any answers for these questions.
There's so many variables with that. You really, it's hard to really say.
So if I may, I'm gonna go back to the information that I remember from when I first was paying attention to China. When people were sick, there were children that were sick. Not everybody was elderly that were dying. Let's see, what's some other information? A lot of people were falling dead in the street, you know, so they couldn't catch it in time. Versus here, people are dying at home. You don't really get to see people dying on the street, you know, for maximum effect, if you will, right? To show you how potent this virus is. So that was happening in China. There's people dead on the street, okay? And I remember seeing, and they were even burning. They even had burning fields in China, outside some people's apartments in China. So they were out there burning bodies.
Well, didn't the Chinese people, weren't they the ones that said that black people couldn't get it?
Yeah.
No.
The Chinese people was the first one that said it, wasn't they?
I'm not familiar with that information, but what I know as far as
I know in the black community, it was running rapid that black people couldn't get it. And it was like, they had it over there, and before we even got it to the United States, I remember that. And I was like, man, what you talking about? We can't get it either. Oh, and everybody's running around saying, oh, black people can't get it. Black people, it's
You know
our
what?
melanin.
Right, the
That's-
melanin was supposed to prevent us, and that was
Bring
clearly
up.
a hoax. And again, that's where we get into the uneducated views and conspiracy theories
Mm-hmm.
and things of that nature running rampant, not only in our community, but being magnificentized. Big word I ain't made up, just what y'all know.
But even in the
well, so
scientific
the
community, even the scientists don't even know. They don't even know.
So-
The scientists don't even know things.
Well, it was my thing is like, even if you look at, if you believe the government, they say we lost 67,000 people to death
Oh,
in the United States.
67,000 now.
Right. So China's only lost 4,643 people.
Well,
Like
no,
you say,
that's a lot.
like you said. So and then the next person, the 28,000 is Italy.
Mhm.
And the UK has 28,000, and we got 67,000 people died from this. Somebody lying.
Yeah, and check this out. Out of that,
I think everybody lying now.
out of that, Alicia, out of that 67,000, right? Probably about half of those people are black and minorities that passed away from this.
Yeah. So you got
So-
to think about the people of Wuhan. Most of them people might have been poor. You know what I mean?
Might have been poor.
Yeah, they could have been. I don't think a lot of rich folks was out there dying because they got rich people. People with wealth have access to better health care.
Of course.
Some people out there, people here dying, people anywhere around the world dying is going to affect poor people, and the poor people tend to be people of color.
Well, I know
It's going to decimate. It's going to decimate Africa.
Well, at my job, I got guys on the job that say, "Hey, man, this is a hoax," and they blaming everything. They're blaming everything. Like if you get a heart attack, it's on coronas. They blaming That's why our numbers are so high. Now, this is why This is why Trump and all these people. They thought it was going to be 200,000 people die.
First he said 2 million, 1 to 2 million.
Right. So now we got 67,000, and we've been into about a month and a half or a month. How long?
2 months. 2 months.
But some of these numbers are inflated because what I've read is you can be tested for the virus. You might have the virus and die from something else, but you died from corona. So that's why some of the numbers are inflated. So
they blaming everything on the corona.
But
Right.
like you could have a heart attack or a stroke, but if you've been have it,
They're going to throw that under the corona tax.
they're going to.
Okay. Sean breaking up real bad. Okay.
You could have had stage 4 cancer and you catch the flu. They're going to throw that under the.
But let me say this too. Let me say this. Back in January, an expat from Washington was flown back in to Washington from Wuhan. He got sick. He did the right thing. He said, look, I just came back from Wuhan. He was okay for a while, but his condition worsened in the last few days. He ended up on a ventilator. He's the same age as I am, 35 years old. That was in January. Right? So if he got let through, let's say 1,000 other passengers from that area, well, let's just say 500 from that area have already infiltrated America. People probably been getting sick from coronavirus as early as February. They never talk about this one individual. They briefly talked about him on the national news here. I remember it. And I even read the scientific review about his condition. So I think, yes, they could be inflating numbers. However, they probably got to go back to February and really count the real numbers because people probably were dying as far back as February. Because they barely did any contact tracing. They didn't do any of the proper protocols. You got to remember, HHS even complained that they didn't have a proper PPE to even handle the expats that came from China. That was big news. Okay?
I don't think the
So you have to
numbers.
keep that in mind.
I don't think the numbers. If you just look at New York City and you see all the bodies that they was just putting in crates and burying all of them in mass graves, I don't think those numbers is inflated. Those are real numbers.
People complaining they smell the body on the street.
What she's saying is the numbers are inflated as far as people dying from the coronavirus. Like it could be people dying, and they're saying that they're dying like from the coronavirus. That's what we're saying, right? Is that you're inflating the number. People are dying, but not necessarily from that. And then also, I saw this young lady on Facebook. She said that she wasn't tested, and she went to the emergency room, and they put down on the paper that she had the coronavirus just because of her symptoms. So if that happened to her, can you imagine how many other people just had the symptoms and they put down that they have the coronavirus? That's just what they put down on the paper.
Right.
You know, and so that's more people that are confirmed to have the coronavirus, because they're just saying everybody got the coronavirus because you got the symptoms. And they already said they don't have enough tests, so they're not testing everybody.
All right,
they're not testing everybody. You don't know what they're sticking up your nose. They might stick a Q-tip up your nose, but you don't know if anything's on it or not, or what they're doing with it.
Mm-hmm. Right. See, that made me think right there what you just said. I hadn't thought about that. I'm not letting nobody test me for nothing unless I'm sick. I'm going in, and, not if I'm healthy. I'm feeling good, and you're not just gonna test me. I'm not letting you stick. I just thought about. I mean, you bring that up, and that's a good point. I'm not gonna let you just stick something up on my nose.
But you don't know what's on it, or what they doing with it, or what. You don't.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's 100% correct.
Exactly, because right now they're probably doing mass DNA collection program right now. A mass DNA collection program.
Before you know it, they might make you take the test. I mean, you just never know about this government. You just never know what they doing.
Well, you can be sure that when they come out with a vaccine, we already know the vaccine is going to be mandatory. Trust me, it's going to be mandatory. Everyone's going to have to take the test. Your kids are going to have to, not take the test, get the vaccine to go to school, just like now. Just like they have to get vaccine to go to school now. When they come up with this vaccine, it's going to be mandatory for you to travel, for you to go to work, for you to go to school. You're going to have to get this vaccine. Somebody's going to make a lot of money off of that vaccine.
Right.
So what about when you watch these Trump up there on the interviews and he's talking conference. With all those and he's got all of them don't have 6 feet social distancing and then even when Pence went to that hospital he didn't even have a mask.
That's what we want to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Is Pence and 40 and administration that confident that nothing is going to occur? Those guys they're not even 2 feet apart from each other in all these conferences.
So this is what I do know. I do know that the president gets tested often. If he gets tested often, everybody in his vicinity, gets tested often. So when I say often, I mean probably every week he gets tested. So that's probably one reason why you see them close, because they're the ones that's using up the bulk of the damn tests, because they're all tested often.
Unless they got the vaccine, unless they got the cure and don't tell you.
Unless they got the vaccine, exactly. Right.
I'm a kind of a conspiracy theorist, so I think they may have the cure. And he walked in that hospital like the doctor got on a mask, the patient got on a mask, the nurses got on masks, and he walked in that hospital with nothing on. Like, only reason that he put his mask back on, I think he went somewhere else and he had a mask on. This is a day or two later, because everybody got on him. It was like
because of the outcry.
This clown said he didn't know nothing about it. He didn't believe it was mandatory. Idiot. Then
he knew.
The Mayo Clinic said we let you know before you got here, and then they retracted the email.
Right. So I want to say this too. I told Dre this before. I lost my train of thought, but I told Dre this before. I watched another conference with some coronavirus survivors, and Trump was telling a woman, she also has Lyme disease, by the way, Trump was telling, this was a black woman, by the way, so you could pull this up on YouTube, but I remember watching it. And by the way, I watched most of his conferences, so I watch everything that they say, and I listen to all the questions that the journalists ask. So I really sit there and watch. So the woman with Lyme disease who also recovered from coronavirus, he slipped up, I think, and told her, I'm going to get my personal doctor to give you some very powerful drugs. And I said,
propaganda.
That's another key that they got some powerful stuff on hand. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's another key. They might have a vaccine, or he might just have something really powerful enough to knock this new virus, the novel coronavirus out. So I know they got access to that. Are we going to get access? Is it going to be the same quality? Probably not.
No,
of course not.
The rich is going to get it.
Yeah, and they make more money. The medical industry makes more money off of keeping you sick than having you, getting you well. So, and that's that's just been the game for the last 50 years. Keep them sick.
So keep that in mind when you're talking about the coronavirus death numbers. People are already sick to begin with. So you get the coronavirus, this might just knock you out even worse.
Right.
And keep in mind, people are already sick here. Okay. They're 30 days away from really dying because they only got 30-day medical supply anyway, as far as what the health insurance allows you to have. They're only 30 days from dying. They're barely hanging on. So to me, the numbers are not implausible, is what I want to say too.
Well, I know my kids, I got a son. He always says, my wife is really cautious about this. He said that, do we know anybody with the coronavirus? And I don't know anybody with it. Now, I don't know about you guys. I don't know a soul. My son always brings it up. He's like, Mom, it's a fluke. This is not real. And I don't know anybody with it. So,
I know several individuals.
Y'all enlighten me.
Several individuals personally that have contracted it.
Okay. Can you name one? Can you give me just a quick little what can you just name? Is they 80-something years old, 90 years old?
There's two individuals. There's two individuals in the 40 to 50 range that actually work at the post office locally.
Did they die from it?
No, they're still surviving.
Are they on?
By the way, I'm gonna interject with that too. My husband works for the post office too. So back in March, somebody he was talking to a coworker. He actually is at the headquarters. So they're working at the headquarters district. At the time, they had to quarantine somebody. He was getting tested. So offhand, we do know of one individual who has coronavirus. Keep in mind also that you got to tell your son there's 8 billion people on the planet. Okay. There's 8 billion people on the planet. That's a lot of human beings. So not everybody caught coronavirus yet. Only about how many million? So not that.
Well,
only in the millions. You're not even a billion.
3.4 million worldwide.
Right. So that's nothing. 3 million people right now is nothing. So in a few years, we'll all have it. So nobody's got it yet. Not me. Everybody doesn't have it yet. You got to keep in mind the numbers of the population of the world.
Presumably, and these numbers are inflated, 60 to 70% supposed to get the virus, which again, those numbers are to me inflated based on creating the hype. Do I believe there's a virus? Yes. Do I believe it's blown out of proportion to the extreme? Yes. You got a lot of direction that you have to wait on from government, and you've got our, for lack of better terms, our president and cabinet trying to put things in place. We got all kind of misinformation.
Keep in mind, we all know this, not just this current administration, this current president, but all the presidents are liars. All administrations are liars. They're all liars. They all aiming for themselves. It's all about them and their cronies. If we want to get into the politics, because I remember when Trump said it was a hoax, and I was like, "Dang, he really think it's a hoax?" What kind of information that he has is telling it's a hoax? Because we know America is the #1 spy agency. We got satellites to spy all over the world, so they do have a lot of information.
Yep.
Go ahead, Sean. What was you about to say?
Oh, sorry about that.
But what else do you expect for him to say? Yeah, it's a hoax. He has to make sure that his members to get reelected. It is what it is.
Okay.
Did anybody talk about 5G when I wasn't on? Did y'all talk about that?
No,
5G?
No.
That's a whole other. We're gonna come back on that one.
No, I mean, it's a possibility that the coronavirus is a symptom of the the 5G that that's coming, the radiation that's coming from the new
The
satellites that towers that they're putting up, for the phones and stuff. It's not just for the phones. You're going to be able to. That's going to be very powerful. 5G is going to be super, super fast. You're going to be able to have a doctor from one part of the world to do a surgery in another part of the world, almost like at the same time. They'll be able to move the robot in the other part of the world almost at the same time.
Virtual reality.
Yeah, that's incredible, and that's a superpower. And whoever controls 5G controls the world. So
I'm gonna piggyback on that, Lynn. I'm gonna piggyback on that because this didn't reach no type of news. But keep in mind, in the middle of lockdowns here in America, there was a satellite or the shuttle which was sent off into outer space, and there's a new satellite up there at AEFH6, if I'm saying that right. That got very little news. That's a brand new satellite that they got up there to spy on pretty much everybody.
Right.
You can look that up. You can find that on YouTube. Right. And I actually watched it. They asked them, well, why you decide to, send this off? Well, you know why? Because that was $1 billion-something program to make sure that you do that, because that's important. Warfare is important. This will be used as part of warfare, even warfare against the people. Let's look at the protests to open up the government. We already knew there was plants on the internet putting that idea in the people's minds. Let's open up America. Let's open up America.
Right.
It's not hard to get people to get riled up. It's not hard. All you got to do is put plants in.
Right.
Can I say something about the protesters that was, I believe, in Michigan and one of the
all over the country.
You know what?
No. The protesters that was in the one of the state government buildings, they had weapons, and that was, How come white folks can do that? Do you think black folks, black men, can be up in any government facility with loaded weapons and not be fired upon? Do y'all think that's strange?
We already know the answer to that, which is important.
Let me do this. We're gonna stop this one because that's gonna talk about the stimulus one and the economic piece that I want to do. So we're gonna actually stop this recording because we wanted to just get this much. We're gonna do a second one talking about the economic benefits and why they want to reopen the government and all that.
Okay.
So save that thought for a moment. We're getting ready to sign off. I thought it was a fruitful conversation. And just a second, real quick, I'm gonna let you go back around and reintroduce yourself, and we'll be jumping back on here in a moment and put another podcast out. Reese, go ahead.
This is Parise Williams at Akron Reese Cup on Twitter.
All right, Shaq, go ahead. Closing out, final words. I can barely hear you, Reese. Shaq.
You can hear me? Maurice Wright, signing off.
All right, Mac Man.
Ed Mac, Philadelphia, signing off.
All right.
Leisha from Delaware. See you on the other side.
And Lynn.
Lynn Mac from Girl from Another Planet. Keep thinking about that 5G. It's real.
All right. And I'm D Rizzle, hosting the Upscale Media Group podcast. This will be on the X Level podcast. Look for us on YouTube under Upscale Media Group, YouTube Upscale Media Group, as well as on Podbean, upscalemediagroup.podbean.com, and we're also on all other. All right, thank you, everyone, and we'll be in touch.